So the sinking ship was a tougher one in terms of building that. There was just a lot of different things coming online at that time in the project.
She was a hard character to figure out, too. I mean,
we struggled with her maturity and her responsibility a lot because of her age, and that's something that changed a lot through the mission, or through as I was building it. So, if you want to talk about that,
yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, there were earlier drafts of the mission and Gobbet's story where there was some more personal tragedy involved.
A family.
There was a draft where there was a family involved that maybe she left behind on the sinking ship. Right. Sort of playing with the idea of Rat driving her to, run at the first sign of trouble, to just sort of leave her problems behind because that's the smart thing to do. But that did a couple of things. One, with this particular team, we needed someone to be, that you could really be a buddy with, kind of like Dietrich was in Dragonfall. We needed somebody who was unquestionably on your side. Gobbet had to fill that role, and if we made her a family abandoner, that could possibly cause
it makes her
problems with that.
Yeah,
exactly. So, I mean, and then the other thing was, if we really treaded heavily in that personal tragedy angle, it ran the risk of making the mission way too much like Glory's story from Dragonfall, and that was something we did not want to do. Yeah. There were already thematic elements that were similar. It's going up against a cultish environment that is isolated, and you're going up against a spirit being of some kind. Yeah. Magic is heavily involved.
There are some baubles you have to grab.
Exactly. There were already a number of similarities. We did not want to have that additional story similarity in addition. So for a whole variety of reasons, that was the wrong call. And, it's like, thankfully we were able to step away from that and bring Gobbet back in line with what she really needed to be and what we wanted her to be.
And when we created her in the first place, it was for a completely different story.
It was.
Right? In a completely different city. And then when we went to Hong Kong, we transferred her over. But originally, she was created to be a guide for you, who was, what's the word you used all the time? An untrustworthy guy. She was Gollum.
She was an untrustworthy narrator in very early drafts of actually a different story, right? In addition, there was this whole idea of her totem Rat taking a much more active role in the story. It's like in the very earliest drafts of outlining, you kind of throw everything, including the kitchen sink, into the mix, and then you start pulling stuff out when you realize there's too much bloat.
And so on the mission, quickly, we had an idea, and Andrew had this idea just in his mind of this slum floating in the middle of the bay, just lashed together, so we had these shipping containers, and I was able to mock together what it looked like, but then Tristan came in along with Zach and was able to really pull the mission together into like this, really just this floating, just kind of just dirt pile, this trash pile of just all these different things collected, and that very much fits with the rat totem thing. And we wanted the mission to kind of feel like an uneasy homecoming where you get to actually interact with the people a little bit more, because there are examples in previous Shadowruns of doing that. But this was a place where you could actually just have conversations with people about long-term history, about when she was there, and you could use that against them, and that kind of uneasy feeling, that uneasy guide thing actually landed in this mission, even though it didn't make it into Gobbet's character, as those kind of locals on the boat are like, yeah, come with us, and it all seems very hunky-dory. They're playing it off as it is, but like you can look around and see how messed up things are, and so there's different options you can take in that mission to kind of be skeptical of them or not.
I really felt like I was awash at sea playing that.
Yeah, and so that was, again, Will's new water, like the blooming fires and stuff worked out really well, and then you get into the kind of danker, just dingier under parts of the ship, and it worked out really well, where it wasn't with quite the branching nature of Grendel, the Guide You Join mission, but it did have kind of a way you could go around and connect with people and talk to people and get background on the ship and what happened. But yeah, it was a fun mission to put together, and it was easy to actually drop a hook in for a different mission, which was that, again, the character voices coming through. There's a section in the beginning of the mission where there's a pump you have to interact with, and if you have intelligence, you can bypass the fuse, and it ends up exploding. And I knew that Isabel was going to be there, and Isabel's a very kind of observational, matter-of-fact person. She's been running with you for some time at this point, and it's kind of that whole Shadowrun thing of, you go to these places where you're a stranger and you just blow stuff up all the time. And so I was like, someone has to comment on that eventually. And so I wrote this little line of dialogue, which was Isabel saying, why is it wherever we go you blow shit up? And you're like, it's not my fault. And then we kind of tied that into later missions as well. And actually with the Isabel Trust mission, if you set off a sprinkler and you hand her this this ruined outfit that she has to wear for the rest of the mission, she's like, why did you can't do anything right the first time. You ruin everything. I have this soaking wet uniform. And it was just these fun things of like, you have to laugh at like what shadowrunning is sometimes.
Like ruin it or make it more fun.
Yeah, but it is a lot of fun to ruin it. And that's why we throw them in there. We have to build those options because that's what shadowrunning is like all of her lessons are about like we had this horrible situation that went completely, haywire and we managed to pull it out and it was a really funny story at the end.
The term for this is pink mohawk versus black trench coat.
Yeah.